Housecall Provider CEO Rebecca Ramsay.
Good evening, everyone. We are so honored to have you here with us tonight as we celebrate 25 years of service to our community. What an incredible start to our first ever virtual celebration and fundraising event. I am so impressed with the creativity of our event team in pulling this celebration together, and I'm inspired by the national presence that we have with us tonight. I joined Housecall Providers as its CEO 3.5 years ago, long after its extraordinary reputation was established. I became enamored with this organization a decade ago when working at Care Oregon, seeing the compassionate care given to its most high-risk patients. But I truly fell in love while leading the partnership effort to merge our two organizations. I had big plans for Housecall Providers. I was determined to grow and refine it to become an even more accomplished home-based medical practice. And those things are occurring, but the reality of what happened is that Housecall Providers transformed me. Because never in my life have I witnessed grace like I do watching our gifted staff protect the dignity and relieve the suffering of our patients each and every day. What do I mean by grace? Because it's different than what you might find in a dictionary. To me, grace is the ability to hold the uncertainty, fear, and anguish that accompanies serious illness with a calm and reassuring presence. Grace is having the patience and composure to maintain an authentic conversation when patients and families want answers that you simply don't have. Grace means honoring the beliefs and values of a patient or family member, especially when they conflict with your own, and finding empathy instead of frustration. At Housecall Providers, our patients are typically in our care for months and years, often during the most frightening and confusing time in their lives. And yet every day, in every home, our incredible staff care for these patients with grace and compassion, giving fully of themselves so that our patients can live a better life for as long as possible. Tonight, you've heard about Housecall Providers' 3 clinical programs. And while much is known about our primary care program, tonight I'd like to focus on the other 2, hospice and advanced illness care. I've thought a lot about what makes our hospice different, and I think the best way to describe it is to share a hospice patient's story. It's serendipity that her name happens to be Grace. Grace was a Filipino woman who met, fell in love, and eventually married an American named Lauren. Soon after, they welcomed the arrival of their son, Sammy. After staying with Grace's family and exploring the Philippines for a couple of years, the family made plans to come to the United States. But before they left, Grace began having vague symptoms, and she was initially diagnosed with tuberculosis. After taking a full regimen of treatments, it was discovered that she had been misdiagnosed. Her symptoms were actually the result of cancer. By the time the 3 of them arrived, what might have been treatable was no longer, and Grace was referred to our hospice. Because Grace was not yet a legal citizen, she had no health insurance, and having just arrived, the family had very little resources. We agreed to care for them regardless of their ability to pay. Our hospice nurse, social worker, and chaplain met Grace when she was experiencing terrible pain and existential distress. The team worked tirelessly to manage Grace's symptoms and to compassionately support Lauren and Sammy so that Grace could die peacefully with her husband by her side. After her death, with the financial support of an incredible partner of Housecall Providers, Gifted Wishes, we were able to give Sammy his most desired Christmas present, an electric drivable toy Jeep. And their gift also enabled Lauren and Sammy to travel to the Philippines to be with Grace's family after she died. Grace is one of many patients we have cared for over the years as part of our compassionate care program. Although her story is a particularly moving example of the compassion and commitment of our staff and the unique role that our hospice plays in the community, it also represents the norm. This is what we do, and this is who we are. In the words of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if you want to be a true professional, you'll do something outside yourself, something that makes life a little better for people less fortunate than you. I want to thank all of our supporters for assisting us in our goal to make life better for our patients. Without your support, the care we provided to Grace and her family would not have been possible. Most of us know that hospice is the gold standard for end-of-life care. But there are so many seriously ill patients that need similar services, but either they don't qualify or they're simply not ready for hospice. That's why in 2017, we created our Advanced Illness Care Program, or ACE as we call it. Each of us knows someone, a family member, a friend, a colleague, who's been diagnosed with an illness that changes their life. And what they really need, on top of great medical care, is the support to manage their symptoms well at home, and someone to help them navigate this new reality. Someone to walk them through the difficult choices they face, making sure that the care they get is what they really want. Our ACE team does just that. It's a program that meets the real needs of seriously ill patients, many of whom have additional life challenges like housing and food insecurity, or struggles with substance use disorder or mental health issues. As the American population lives longer with chronic illness, community-oriented palliative care, like what we provide in ACE, is the right medicine for this moment in American healthcare. Let me tell you about one of our ACE patients, Lynn, who found her way to our care team just in the nick of time. Lynn is a 54-year-old woman born and raised in Portland. She enjoys art, cooking, and volunteering to help others. In fact, she has been putting food boxes together at Highland Christian Center for over a year, until she had to stop due to COVID. She's estranged from her family, and because of limited and inconsistent restaurant income, she's been living in a shed in her friend's backyard for the past 5 years. Lynn was admitted to our program in early September in severe pain. A few weeks later, she underwent several tests and was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer. When the wildfires brought dense smoke into Portland, Lynn began having shortness of breath. Our ACE team members quickly applied for priority permanent housing, but even priority housing takes time. So the team also submitted a request to Care Oregon for a hotel voucher. Because of this, she was able to move to a hotel within 48 hours, where she is currently receiving chemotherapy and symptom management support. Imagine trying to deal with cancer treatment and not knowing where you're going to sleep that night. Without this kind of advocacy and the grace and skill of our team, I can almost guarantee Lynn would have spent much of these past weeks in and out of the ER and possibly admitted to the hospital, a much costlier and riskier outcome. But what touches me the most about this story is that despite all that Lynn has experienced and what she is currently facing, she continues to have a positive outlook, and at the end of every call to her team, she reliably tells them how grateful she is for their care. This is what we do, and this is who we are, and it's with grace that we will continue to serve. Thank you all so very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Rebecca.